One quick barra swap time, and it's episode 3. Now in this episode, hopefully Jace will finish off the newly designed bolt-in triangulated rear end. Matty will jump onto the front end while it's on the hoist, and he'll put in rod shop tubular arm kit that bolts in the front. Now it's engineered, it's got the Vikings, it's got all the adjustment, and it's got a nice ride height, so we'll take you through that. Also, while he's there, we'll put on the big Wilwood brakes. We want this thing to stop. Now my job is to find some wheels that'll fit over these massive brakes. Righto, so we're going to go onto the tubular arm front end. Now to do that, Matty does all the front end. So Matty's going to give us a quick rundown before we fit it to the car, the advantages and disadvantages and whatever else that comes along with it. Now, before Matt does go into it, it is fully engineered. We've got the report, it's got all the data that goes with it. So that's for engineer use only, correct?
Yep.
Now, testing wise, obviously we've done what we normally do.
Yeah. Been put in cars, been used on the street, used on the track. It's done everything it's meant to do and more, so we're pretty happy with it. So put it in this piece, see how it goes.
Perfect. So we've got the data on it. We've done the testing on it. We know it works. We know it's a really good thing. Now, advantages of our tubular arm kit?
Get better caster adjustment, camber adjustment, better overall ride height if you want to adjust it up high, low, whatever you want out of it. Tunability in the shock itself, so you can set it up to granny spec or race spec, whatever you want to do. So got more settings and you know what to do with. So
all right, so that's a no-brainer. So that part's sorted. Quick rundown of how it sets up. So what we've got on here, what make and model do we do?
Well, this kit here will do from XR Falcon through to XF Falcon with a few variances. When you order the kit, they'll have different caster bar lengths for some Falcons to others, and then in the lower arm comes with a different size bush because there's a camber pin that goes in. The factory camber pin has different size, so we put the small bush in, cable tie a bigger bush to it. If the small bush isn't what you need, throw it out, put the bigger one in, you should be good to go.
Alright, so hopefully that'll all make sense, and as we go through the car, Matty will show us that. Points of adjustment, well obviously you can see here, shims on our upper arm.
Yep.
We've got a mountain adjustment in here, which Matty will run us through. And it's a brand new product. So, highly tested, Viking the leader in shocks, there's no doubt about that in performance. So, I'm going to get out of the way. I'll go and see how Jace is travelling with the rig, because we've got a sway bar to sort out. You can throw it in the air and attack it.
Yep, make this thing happen.
Perfect, alright, let's do it.
So we're going to strip out the factory suspension out of the car, take all the caster bar, lower arm, top arm, spring, shock, everything out. I'm going to leave the brake on here even though we're going to go to Wilwood's just to show how it works with this factory one. So I'm going to leave the brake calipers just swinging, just tie it out of the way for the minute, save making a mess and save bleeding it back up later. So just stick with us as we go through it. So I've undone the upper control arm bolts from under the guard before I pull this spring out, just because there's a lot of tension on some of these springs. So it's probably the safest way to undo that, pull the control arm off the body itself, and then undo the top. So then if it's going to let itself off with a fair bit of tension, it's only going to hit the ground. So just try and stay clear just in case. So I've just pulled out the lower control arm and got the factory camber pin, which we retained for this new kit. So in this case, you've got the small bush which comes in these arms as they're delivered, and a big bush that's cable tied to it. So in this case, as you can see, the pin's too big to go in the hole, so that's the big pin instead of the small pin. So all you do is push that bush back out, put your bigger one that was provided with it as well, throw that one in the bin, and all good to go. So I've got our left-hand lower control arm, fits as per factory. So you've got your caster bar that goes to the front, make sure you've got the left arm on the left side. Factory camber bolt, just push it in like standard and put your camber bolt back in it and should be good to go. So this is a lower caster bar that comes in your kit. after you've removed your factory one. It's just a standard front bush like you'd have in your Falcon to start with anyway. I'm going to choose to put, there's 3 different spaces for the caster set up on this. I'm going to put the biggest one to the front and the 2 smaller ones at the back. Just, I feel like that'd be a good starting reference for the wheeler liner bloke when he comes along and has a go at it. So we'll just start with that, and I'll just put it to the car, and lower arm just slides into the lower control arm there. So I've got our upper control arm here, just one thing to keep an eye on when you're putting it in the car. So where your coil over point is different front to back. So we just want to make sure when we get the kit, it should be labelled, but in some cases it just gets missed. Smallest gap to the front, bigger gap to the back, just so you get a better caster angle on your stub axle. It'll lay it back over and get a bit more stability and stuff. So just keep an eye on the smaller gap to the front. So in the kit we get a couple of different upper arm shims. There's a thick and a thin. Just start off as a baseline with both shims, just slide them in from this side. Your wheel alignment guru can sort it out from that point. Then that upper arm's right to tighten up and set up, and then we'll go to fitting the coil over in it. So I've got our spring on the coil over, upper arm's in and tight, so all you do is feed it back in like you would with your standard shock absorber, put the top bush and nut on the same as it was factory pretty much. They bolt up exactly the same way as your factory shock absorber would anyway, so just slide it back up in there. Then all you got to do is put your crush tube bottom push through the top control arm, and you're ready to start putting your stub axle back on so you can get it back on the ground. So we're finished putting it all back in, dummying it up with these brakes. As you know, we're going to change them to Wilwoods once we've done this. We're just going to do a bit of a test run and show you guys what heights we can set with it. So at the moment, I've wound it up as high as I can be bothered winding it up without spanners, because I have a fair idea it's going to be a little bit too high. So we'll roll it forward at this height so you can see out in the open how high it is. Then we'll come back, wind it all the way down so you can see where it is, and then I'll set the height that I reckon it should be for street legal and engineering use. We'll go from that. All right, so you saw it at high, which at that point still has probably 100 mil more to wind it up if you really want, but I knew it was going to be too high for what we wanted to do, so it wasn't worth swinging off the spanners to jack it up that last little bit. So now we'll go all the way down so you can see how low it can go, which I'm going to assume right now that it'll be on the factory bump stop that we kept at that point, and then we'll put it back up and go again, and we'll put it up to the height that we reckon it should be around. Alright, so you've seen it high, and you've seen it as low as it can get. So now I'm going to set it to what I reckon should be a good starting point for us to try and get our ride height fairly even with the rear on it. So I'm going to start at about 40 mil from the bottom of the thread to the bottom of that nut, the second nut. And just make sure when you're doing this that you make sure that you've tightened both nuts up before you actually use the car. We aren't doing it at the moment because we're going to change it and stuff around with everything else and make sure it's right. But once you find you settle on a ride height, make sure you lock those nuts up tight, because if they come undone, you'll be in all sorts of strife. And when you're doing this, always keep in mind that once the car is driven and settled and done a few brake tests and all that sort of stuff, the car will get lower in the front than what you actually set it at to start with. And in this case, we've still got more stuff to put in the front. We haven't got the turbo on it, haven't got a radiator, still no bonnet, so it will go down further than what we've set it at. So try and set it up a little bit higher so it'll actually fall to where you want it once it's done.
Righto, so we've got the rod shop tubular arm front end in it, we've got the rod shop 4-bar rear end in it. Now just a quick last look with the snowflake wheels on. Tomorrow we're going to whip it apart, big brakes on, you'll never see it with these wheels. Now if you do buy one of these products from the rod shop, this is the ride height we're chasing, that perfect street look.
Alright, so we're back here about to put on the Wilwood brakes on this car. We've gone for the bigger option on this one. We do smaller ones as you've seen in other videos like Mark's wagon. We had the small ones on this. These ones are a minimum of 18-inch wheel, so we've got to go to a bit bigger on this. So we're just going to go through, strip it down. As you can see, I've got this already put together. I've lubed, torqued everything up as per Wilwood instructions, done the wheel bearings, Loctite and everything. I personally mark things myself just for my own reference, just so I know where I've been and what's done properly. So stay with us, we'll strip this stub axle down, get the stub axle down to the machine shop because we've got a little procedure we've got to do with our stub axle to hold our caliper brackets, which you can do yourself if you're confident. If not, take it to a qualified mechanic and they'll should be able to help you out with it.
Right, down here with our stub axle, we're going to drill and tap out the thread ready for the big brake kit. Now, I've got mills and drills and everything else here. We've got all the different options, but all I want to do is show you guys how easy it is to do with your standard pedestal drill. So over here, we have tucked away the little cheap pedestal drill. Now, it's a Heron Forbes one, not expensive, works really well, and it's just used for a bit of deburring. Not a lot happens with it. So, perfect for the application for you guys at home and for what I'm about to do now. So, stub axle, we've got to bang it in the vise. Now everyone with a pedestal drill does have a vise, so if you don't have one, get one because you should. Set up here now to check to make sure we are level. Very basic little level. Make sure our drill is nice and square. Set up on our machine face here of our stub axle, and all we need to do, get it nice and level. Now 7/16 UNF is the thread, so we must use 25/64 drill bit. Now, if you don't have that size drill bit, go and get one. It must be used. Now, and I just want to repeat, if you don't feel capable and competent for what you're doing here, do not do the job. Take it to your local machine shop. Not an expensive procedure. Bare stub axle. I'm sure they can bowl it over in a quick hour's labour. Right, so our holes are drilled out. Throw it into your vise. We've got our tap, 7/16 UNF, a little bit of cutting fluid. Throw that away.
So I've got our stub axle back from the machine shop, it's been tapped out. It's all looking pretty good, so we're just going to fit it up to the car, do up all the ball joints and the tie ends, and then we'll go through fit the Wilwood kit to it. So I've laid out both my brake kits left and right hand side. So brackets are all torqued up to Wilwood settings and Loctite together. Just going to fit the brackets to the car and go through fitting it all up. That's all torqued up, right to go. So we've got our hubs that I've already lubed the bearings, put the seal in the back, so that's ready to slip straight on, as I said earlier. You've got your front bearing retainer collar that comes in the kit. You retain your factory lock, Castle nut and standard nut. First and foremost, better put some grease on the stub axle. Now I've got the rotor and hat to put on. 3 little dome bolts that go in it. And they only go on one way, the holes are all staggered. So put a bit of Loctite on them and torque them up as per Wilwood settings. Now you've got a packet of caliper spacers and shims you've got to put on before you put your caliper on. I usually, as a start, put 2 gold shims on the bolt first. Then your black spacer on top of that. Usually a good place to start off with. And as we said before, we've already got the pads in the caliper, so ready to go. Now these rotors and calipers are directional, so there's an arrow on the caliper itself, and on the rotor you'll find it's got a little arrow as well to tell you they all go forwards. Now that little shim that we put in there will just determine your height of your pad contact so you don't actually drag the top of the caliper on the rotor. You just make sure you've got equal amounts of pad contact and not dragging on the rotor at any place. If you do, it comes with a shim kit to shim your caliper bracket back off the actual mount, so you can use that if it's not correct. A little bit more Loctite on these nuts and torque them up to Wilwood settings. We're pretty much home and hosed. So fitting up the new brake lines on this kit, the actual bracket that holds the brake line to the car is part of your actual line, but we need to retain that for our rod shop lines. So you just use a grinder, 1mm blade, cut down either side, so you're left with just what you see there. Just get a little punch out the centre if it wants to come out, and then just get a round file a square edge off that you can see on the edge there, file that back so it's round and go slightly just a little bit bigger, so then your new fitting will fit through there and fit it back how it used to be. So something like that and we should be right. Perfect. So we're about to fit up the right angle fitting into the back of the brake caliper so your lines can plumb up to it. As you'll see on the back of the caliper, there's a black sticker that says line inlet. A lot of people try and go into a bleeder, which is not on. So remove the sticker as best as you can. And there's your line in port ready to go. Now they get tight, but if it gets too tight and it's not in the place where you want it, back it off and go again, and it'll give you more every time. You can pretty much screw them all the way in. It's about where we want it, so we'll leave it at that for a minute. So here's our bracket that we modified earlier, just a standard horseshoe clip through it. That'll go back into the standard spot up here. The factory line will plumb into it, and you just use your flexi hose as per normal into your fitting that you've just fitted, and you're ready to rock.
Alright, so we're doing the final setup on the 9-inch, which is the sway bar. Now, I've gone to our graveyard out the back and we picked an XC Falcon sway bar. Now, obviously we couldn't run the factory one, we tried to fit it on there, it's complete wrong shape, the diff's too big. So now Jace is here just trying to check out final fitment while I'm holding the dumb end here again. If we get clearances and everything's good, you guys will be able to buy like a white line one or Petters or one of them guys will make it on the shelf. We'll check that before we go use it, make sure it is a shelved item. So clearance is here, nearly sorted, couple more brackets to go, then Jace will be able to pull it all out and start jigging off it. Now, before he does take it out, I have found some wheels out the back in the graveyard once again, which are stacked away in a spare car. Now, they've been used on a previous project, and I think they should look alright. So, shortly, we'll get it down the wheels, throw them on, see what it looks like. Righto, so we've rolled the car off the hoist. I've got a set of wheels from up the back, as you can see behind me. Now, I'll start off by saying they don't suit the car and I'm not happy with them. That's my personal opinion. And the major issue is at the rear here. We have an offset issue. So, as we can see, there's a massive gap. Doesn't look any good, and I've checked with the guys, they don't make the offset that's going to work anyway. So they're out of the question. Now, if we come around the other side, what I have got is option number 2. Now, one of the boys up in sales had a set of these off a late model Falcon Ute. Now, I'm a little bit up in the air whether they do work or they don't work. I could see a lot of guys hating them. Some guys may like them, but I am chasing a larger rim. So that's option number 2. Now, the third option I've looked at on the computer is the original wheel they make in a larger size. So we go to, as the boys here refer to them, the Snowflake. Now they make the Snowflake in, I think it was a 19-inch rim, which I reckon would work. Smaller tyre, bit bigger wheel, give it that nice straight look. So probably let you guys out there decide. Option A, I think that's out the window. Option B, yeah, some will like, some will hate. Or option C, let me know what you think. Now, that's going to be a wrap. Next episode, we're going to jump the engine bay, we're going to work on the Barra. That's what the car's all about. Got the suspension nearly sorted, the wheels are up in the air. But we'll get that Barra sorted, we'll get the trans on it, and let's make this thing happen a little bit closer. So, thanks for watching, like, subscribe, see you again.